Groundbreaking stories in the world of AI, from OpenAI's governance shift and its new program to serve international customers, and to the innovative use of AI in courtrooms and the exciting announcements from Mistral and Google.
Yeah, we'll also discuss Instacart CEO's Simu's move to OpenAI, GitHub's new connector for ChatGPT, and Microsoft partnerships with Google. Plus, we'll explore some ambitious plans from ServiceNow for its AI products. So stay tuned for an insightful and also engaging discussion, as always.
Greetings. Welcome to the AI Files podcast. If you're looking to stay up to date on the AI, this is the podcast for you. I'm Shadab Hussain. I'm the director of AI at Microsoft, and I'm your co-host.
Hello, everybody. Jamie Basilico, as you know already. I'm the other co-host here for the AI Files. My day job is a data and AI technical specialist and architect. And as a reminder, please note this is not an official Microsoft channel, so the views and opinions expressed by myself and Shadab are our own and do not represent the views of Microsoft.
So, AI Code of the Week, Jamie, there is a memo that was actually going viral, and this was following another memo that went viral a few weeks ago. And this particular memo that I'm referring to actually came from Duolingo CEO. And here's the quote of the week. He said, quote, developing our first 100 courses took about 12 years. And now, in about a year, we are able to create and launch nearly 150 new courses, unquote, said Louis Von On, CEO and co-founder of Duolingo. Uh, so this was actually published on the web as well, so it is available for anybody to read in its entirety. It goes on and it talks about, it's a great example of how Gen AI can directly benefit our learners. And essentially, the declaration in that memo is that Duolingo is going to be AI first. And that's has been a trend, right? There have been countries which are like mobile first. There are companies like digital first or digital native, and now there are this new, I would say breed of company which are basically declaring themselves as AI first. It's easier actually for digital native companies, like which are companies which were basically born in the digital era. They didn't have too many legacy. They started, pretty much in the digital age and or of the mobile, and now they can easily and simply move to become the AI first as well. In fact, this memo does talk about that. He said that in 2012, we bet on mobile. While others were focused on mobile companion apps for websites, we decided to build mobile first because we saw it was the future. That decision helped us win the 2013 iPhone App of the Year and unlock the organic word of mouth growth that followed. He goes on to say AI isn't just a productivity boost, it helps us get closer to our mission. To teach well, we need to create a massive amount of content, and doing that manually does not scale. Without AI, it would take us decades to scale our content to more learners. We owe it to our learners to get them this content, I said. He also actually laid down some of the rules. Like, for example, he said that, okay, we'll be rolling out a few constructive constraints to help guide this shift. Number one, we will gradually stop using contractors to do work that AI can handle. Number two, AI use will be part of what we look for in hiring. Number three, AI use will be part of what we evaluate in performance reviews. And number four, headcount will only be given if a team cannot automate more of their work. And number five, most functions will have specific initiatives to fundamentally change how they work.
Yeah, so there's two parts to this story which I find very compelling, and they're, I wouldn't say they're vastly different, but it's sort of like the tale of two sides. So as you outlaid, this is a company that's relatively new. I mean, 2012 was that 13 years old. So one part of this is you can look at it. What did AI do for its business in what it was capable to do? And you see huge productivity gains in the sense that they've been able to generate so many different learning courses. I think you had mentioned, what did they do? 100 in the first 12 years, and then they were able to do, 150 new courses
50,
in 8 years. So, you take a span of 12 years, and they were able to do more than that in just a year with AI, and that's a great story. And I think, we're going to see that over and over again from many different companies on where AI can help, in their delivery and their productivity. The other side of this is what you were just talking about, these quote unquote constructive constraints on where AI will impact their business itself as far as how they do work and how they hire. I think we're going to see more and more of this. I certainly give a nod to these companies and these CEOs that are being forthright on how they're thinking about how AI will impact their workforce. I think there's a lot of CEOs, CFOs that are not being truthful, or not, either not being truthful, not embracing, and or just not realizing what this is going to do to their business. So, things like stopping contractor work, things like, oh, if you're in this company and if you're not using AI, you're going to be dinged for not doing, or not using AI. So to me, this is going to be more prevalent as we progress over time. Every company, I think, is going to have these same quote unquote constructive constraints on how they look at AI, how they look at their workforce, and how they evaluate people that are in their company.
Yeah, I mean, and Jimmy, I was having some public conversations on AI, and what I've realized is that there is this, I think, part of the population which I would call AI woke. They are aware of what's coming. They are aware of the potential, etc., and they're pretty interested, right? They've been, you and I, we get a lot of these kind of messages and mails to actually help them and guide them, and which we do. Um, but there are still a vast population that still doesn't know, right, what to do and what's coming, and they're still rather limited in I would say the exposure to AI, which worries me, right? I mean, I feel that everybody should get a fair chance to actually participate in this revolution. And as you can see, what is laid out here, that like, okay, we won't hire, we won't promote, right? All these kind of things. So people have to be able to figure out how to do these things. The other aspect is that, you know it's easier, I think, for a smaller company to actually do this. That's what it would appear, that okay, yeah, I mean, they're just like smaller companies and you can do the AI first. But I think that's not the whole story. There are actually bigger companies also doing the same thing. Big companies are also actually evaluating and looking at AI, and we can see that. I think there is a fundamental shift in terms of how the hiring will happen. And pretty much, like, whether it's a small or big, I see this being across the board. Now the smaller ones can move fast and they can publish things. The bigger ones won't do that easily, but doesn't mean that it's not happening on the ground there.
Yeah, and I think there's another angle to this as well. It's how much are companies like Duolingo investing in their own employees by the way of training? What are they doing to, infuse those work products that they want, or the behaviors that they want, into their employees? And that has to start with the company itself, in how they're training their employees, because you're not going to get these skills just, hey, we're expected to happen. You actually have to do the work, you have to do the training, you have to provide the support that's needed to shift the workforce. And I think, if you didn't mention already, I know that that's one of the things that Duolingo was also looking at is, how do they train their employees to leverage the tooling around AI to be most effective within those job functions that they're running.
True. And I think, this theme is everywhere. Like recently, we have seen a lot about this from the bigger companies like Meta as well, announcing that, okay, this will be an year of efficiency and they will be using a lot of AI and things like that. However, recently, that when Meta had their LlamaCon and other, um, you know, I want to talk about like how they're using basically AI in every single thing, and not just the job reduction, right? So it's not just about the productivity, and I think that is the right way to go. In the way that I do support, right? My personal perspective is that, and I try to veer the conversation toward that. Okay, hey, the immediate benefit is not reducing the head count, right? I mean, that's like lazy, right? I mean, just to say, okay, I'm going to deploy AI and I'm going to reduce the head count, and I'll show the cost saving, and hey, that's where I get the promotion. I would say it's very lazy. Unfortunately, that does happen a lot, but it's very lazy way of doing things. On the other hand, actually, I come across several use cases where actually you increase revenue, right? Why don't we look at that way, that okay, there is a whole revenue upside, the new channels of revenue that you can open up and things like that. You can also improve the productivity, not by reducing headcount, but there is so much drudge work that happens that can be actually automated. Let me tell you about a simple way of how I use AI, Jamie, recently. The researcher agents and this kind of agents which are available, also available in Copilot now. I use that basically to write an executive summary of an RFI. Okay, so what happens is that the response is already written, it's all available within the Excel, and there are questions and their answers. An executive summary, is it can take time, right? You have to synthesize, you have to analyze all the responses and make sure that the important parts are highlighted. All I did is I asked a researcher agent, okay, look at this, look at the goals of the RFI defined on this page, and then look at all the questions that were shared and the responses that we have answered. Now synthesize a response within 5 pages. Okay. And it did a wonderful job. It gave me, but that's not the whole story. That's not I just take it and submit it. I did a lot of editing as well, but I would say my work was probably reduced from 100% to, on that scale, to probably about 20-30% only. Now that saved me time, right? That's how I'm able to do more things. So I think those are also huge gains that we can get, rather than just being lazy and cutting the headcount, which many companies unfortunately do, and that becomes a bad example.
Yeah.
Um, what Meta is doing is, like, they recently also announced that okay, we are not just trying to focus on productivity but also personalization, right? Knowing you best, and they're trying to deploy the AI in those functions as far as the product lines are concerned, right? So, for example, personalizing the ad, right? Use AI to basically improve the ad targeting and relevance and boosting, ad effectiveness. Or the example of content discovery, right? Enhancing recommendations engines to drive user engagement. In fact, that's really the secret sauce, right? And most companies rely on that. TikTok is really good at that, right? And that's why TikTok is unmatchable, and that's your secret sauce. That's why they're also resisting, being bought, because the secret sauce is that recommendation engine. The third is like business messaging, right? Essentially monetizing whatever that user base that they have in WhatsApp, and then enable the business to deploy AI agents within WhatsApp for customer service and sales and things like that. And then finally, like the other AI use cases, like build competitive general purpose AI chatbot to, that's essentially compete with the other assistant apps and things like that. um like within WhatsApp you can use that as an assistant as well, which I tried. In fact, I tried that Perplexity one as well. So there is a whole bunch of agents and assistants that are coming in the social media as well. That's also another good example of how you can use AI positively and productively. I'm not saying that Meta is not doing anything, on the headcount reduction. I'm saying that these are some of the good examples as well.
Yeah, no, those are good, and I love your story actually about the RFI. I've been there as well. It's about productivity gains that we can take and how we bring that back into our organization or any organization. Anyway, speaking of organizations, this is a good pivot, and a good segue into the organizational structure of OpenAI. I'm sure most of people, if not all, have heard, within the news that OpenAI was contemplating going into a for-profit structure, and part of that was tied to funding from basically outside sources that they could raise additional funds. Well, there's a lot of scrutiny around that, a lot of chatter, both internal, external, some even lawsuits that were threatened based upon if they went for profit control. So everything has been reversed, at least to a point. So OpenAI reverses course. So it will keep its nonprofit board in ultimate control of the company, but it will turn the for-profit unit into a public benefit corporation. So this decision actually follows various different talks with different civic leaders and state attorneys or state attorney generals into what is the best structure and what's best for the company, as well as then what are the ramifications around that. So the nonprofit part of OpenAI will remain the largest shareholder. And this new structure still lets the company raise, quote unquote, billions of dollars to fund various different products, especially those like ChatGPT. And as I mentioned before, there was a valuation that was being floated around, and part of that was to raise additional funds. But this whole shift to this keeping the nonprofit control comes amid an evaluation of $300 billion, which also then led to some of these ongoing lawsuits from Elon Musk. And again, there's a long history between Elon, who was part of the initial investors within OpenAI, and there's certainly some bad blood, if you will. But the great thing about this new structure is that, as I mentioned already, this allows this pivot where the nonprofit can actually override the for-profit as the company scales. So that meets some of the concerns that Musk's lawsuit had around what was being called mission drift, like how far off does OpenAI, because it was meant to be a research organization to promote the use of good AI across the world. So the end result of this, not only from a nonprofit standpoint in terms of staying in control, is that the board still has the ability to provide safeguards while still keeping investors on the board. So it's sort of like this mix of best of both worlds, keeping the charter for AI safety while still keeping, folks that are investing in the company happy because it's, moving forward and making money.
Yeah, I think I would say, that as you indicated, this was, I would say, I don't think it was an original plan. This was triggered by that lawsuit where judge found a bit of merit in Elon Musk lawsuit and kind of gave a mixed judgment. It did say that Elon, however, is not probably the right person. Why would Elon has to pursue this? Um, but there is a merit in this overall charter and the change, etc., and this lawsuit itself. So that, I think, they have been working with a lot of attorney general. Now the interesting part is, Jamie, that a lot of the evaluation and the recent round that they've done was actually based on the condition of be able to turn into the profit organization. um, Now that seems like they still will be able to do, because they have removed some caps on the profit sharing and things like that. So that would still looks like, based on the last few days, it doesn't look like that the investment companies are actually going away. We will have to see, uh, but it seems like, um it's not the best, but it's like seems like the minimum and the viable what they can do to keep that investment, etc. So time to tell, we'll see. But I think I would say I still have a bit of trust in Sam Altman's business savvy abilities. He has been able to get things done. I think he should be able to find a way.
Yep.
Okay. All right, let's talk about the other interesting example of how the AI is being used. There was a recently a news about a person actually trying to use the AI to argue his case. It was from an entrepreneur who actually had the company and created it, and the judge was really, really dismissive of that, and she said that, okay, shut it down. I'm not going to let you launch your business in my court. But in the another example, and here is an example where actually judge kind of welcome this change, where um, a sister of a person who was slain, who was basically killed in the road rage. What she did is she actually used the AI to create a video of her deceased brother. And it's all over the news, so it's all public details. Christopher Pelkey for a victim impact statement during the sentencing of his killer. And this AI generated video is short, but it features his avatar expressing forgiveness and saying farewell to his family. In fact, judge praised the video, and the killer was sentenced to actually 10.5 years in prison, etc. But it was basically welcomed. It was like, it was at the right moment. The video was a little bit glitchy. I saw that, like sometimes the lips were not really synced to the voice, but hey, it's no need to nitpick. The idea was to actually use the moment to actually, like, find a closure, right? I would say a lot of time people wish, okay, it didn't happen. I would say that it was a way to find the closure in this, and give the message out. So we will have to see. In this particular case, there was not much controversy because judge welcomed it, and I think the laws also in that particular state actually kind of allow you to bring some surprise. You don't have to declare in advance, you don't have to take an approval, etc., during those impact statement, things like that. So um, I would say, it's something that, like, you can see, right, how the AI is becoming ubiquitous in our daily life.
Yeah, I mean, this one is, a heartfelt use of AI. I mean, there's certainly lots of stories of using AI video for, nefarious type of activity. This one obviously is certainly heartfelt. I can't imagine his sister, taking the time and building this. I mean, that obviously had to bring up a lot of feelings, to say the least. But to me, this is a novel way of actually using AI for good, like you said, for closure, but also providing, at least projecting one person's thoughts into something. Unfortunately, in this scenario where their family member had passed away, but to me, this is interesting. I'd be curious on where this may go in terms of setting precedents, maybe for other court cases, and will they allow this in other regions, districts, areas for exactly like you said, something that was used for the victim impact statement. So I think this makes a lot of sense, as long as you're not providing different words or different I'll leave it at words, different words that person may have not have said when they were alive. Anyway,
True.
I think it's a great
Sometimes actually I do wonder, Jamie. I've thought about this. I have my parents who have passed away, my some of my older relatives who have passed away as well. And sometimes I do wonder, would I use the AI to reconstruct, right, or recreate some of the memories, etc.? Because like, those days we didn't have like too much like captured, right? um I do have, like, for example, some of my grandparents, right? All I have is one photograph, that's all,
Yeah.
and no recording of the audio, right? It's something that it's like very personal. It's like everybody has to feel differently. I don't think there is a right way of, like, right rule or something like that. It's like everybody has different appetite to actually consume this, and emotional, I would say. I don't know what I will do, but it is something on my mind as well. Maybe one day, and it's become easy if it is not a tragedy, right? If it is a natural passing away, and then you're trying to recreate some memories again, for the very older, like I would say that, like, the grandparents and those kind of generations where we had rarely any memory captured. So, but time to tell. I don't know about myself where I will go.
So on slightly different topics here, shifting away from the court case, um, going back to OpenAI. Again, OpenAI is in the news a lot. This one is actually for a program that they're launching named OpenAI for Countries, and in essence, what it actually does, it's OpenAI working with local governments, and they haven't disclosed which ones that they want to either select or pick, but the intent is to actually work and partner with these governments to build data center capacity and customize OpenAI's products for applications that would serve local needs. And that could be everything from specific locations to or specific languages in those locations to location specific nuances within the application. So what's interesting here is that the funding will come from not only OpenAI, but the governments themselves, as far as those that are going to be participating with OpenAI. And the goal is to pursue 10 different international projects. And again, this is where the locations have not been disclosed. But again, you got to remember that part of this is to build data centers. So it's not just, hey, let's, alter a ChatGPT application to put in different languages. It goes way beyond that. Again, it is about putting in funds to build not only the apps, but to build the data centers. So the real intent behind this, not only obviously is to build capacity and get OpenAI into different countries and locations, but it's actually to promote the democratic AI. And what that really means is choose OpenAI and its models over other what I'll call Western AI models. Specifically, I'm really getting at like Chinese competitors, things like DeepSeek. So the intent here is, hey, we're a good company. We're gonna invest in your local country, and at the same time, here's applications that would be aligned and suitable for your citizens of your country, and that's kind of what it is. So I look at this as a campaign in expansion, but also a campaign in aligning with given areas of the world. So the other thing too to kind of keep in mind is that this will complement OpenAI's larger data center initiative, aka Project Stargate, which looks at expanding it outside of just the U.S. So, as Stargate is really about infrastructure and funding here in the United States.
I think this is I like this news because it just tells that I think it's just not about the enterprises. It's actually about at the whole level of community and the countries, etc. And I think that's important, right? I mean, this because it's not just about enabling. To be honest, it's just a political tool as well, right? You
Yeah.
help with a country and then you capture the political mindset. So something I would say similar was done like earlier in the I think of several months ago. There was some announcement where actually the government of UAE, etc., were actually provided with I would say the lot of infrastructure related enablement, things like that, and the AI models. There was actually some collaboration that was also facilitated, and that was to keep away the influence from China, right, in that country. So I think it's being played out at the world level already. Will be interesting to see which countries actually sign up first. Okay, on the OpenAI, there's of course OpenAI just is always trying to stay in the news. Jamie, I think we need to carve out a separate section just for OpenAI.
No, really.
Um, they actually had the Instacart CEO, Fiji Simo, joining them as a CEO of applications. I don't even know what that means, but let me try to explain. She's, by the way, already a board member at OpenAI, and she will transition out of Instacart over the next few months and join the company full time later this year. So Altman says that he would continue in his role, overseeing verticals like research, compute, and applications, and Simo will directly report to Altman. Probably also it is. I think it is also as per some reports that the chief operating officer Brad, CFO Sarah Fryer, and CPO Kevin will also report into her. It seems to me like it's succession planning, Jamie, right? Based on these kind of things, how that happens. You bring somebody and then you keep them in a role and then you basically they will take over, right? So it seems to me kind of succession planning, or at least one of the possible contender. By the way, what Sam Altman also said, that application brings together a group of existing business and operational teams responsible for how our research reaches and benefits the world, and Fiji is uniquely qualified to lead the group. She's Since she has been already part of the board, it was just easy for her to actually get into this role. Honestly, that's what Altman was trying to say. And she will also actually help OpenAI in scaling traditional company functions. I think the functions like HR maybe and finance and things like that, and the operations. Um, Now, the thing is that I think, by the way, this lady, Fiji, she did some wonderful job at Instacart. She actually took that company public. And that's what, so she has scaled that company a lot, and she's still an active CEO, but she will be making a move to the OpenAI. So that was in the news. Gives us a possible indication of in the future, maybe in a year or so out, she may become a CEO of OpenAI.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's bringing in somebody that certainly has a tenure and a talent across different companies. And to me, I read this as it gives Sam slightly more time to think about other things other than what I'm going to call like the daily things as it relates to the applications. I mean, ChatGPT is an app, right? It runs on their models. So to me, this allows Sam to think more about like whether it's research, new computing strategies, or maybe even like the next application. Who knows? But I think this is good when you start to do some delegation of duties or activities within the company, and this certainly should help Sam in that regard.
Yeah, and to be honest, Jimmy, I'll tell you, one of the theme is basically there is a lot of people who used to be at Meta, and they were in part of the engineering and AI, etc. They are actually going and setting up the companies, establishing new ones, and or scaling them or taking charge. I mean, a lot of them. In fact, Fiji also actually comes from Meta. She used to be at Meta before she actually joined Instacart and other companies. Another person, Asha Sharma, right? Our own actually, head of, I would say, AI Foundry, right? And the AI functions at Microsoft. She was actually CTO of Instacart. And before that, she came from Meta. There are a lot of folks actually. So Meta has produced a lot of talent, I would say. Just like, some of the other groups have also done, like Google DeepMind is also known to create a lot of talent, which have gone out and create a lot of new companies, etc. Similarly, Meta's club is also creating a lot of new these waves as well. Okay, let's talk about the conversation is not complete unless we talk about some new model, Jamie. So there has been some announcements from Mistral. Just to let you know, they still are there. They basically made two announcements. Number one, a new model called Mistral Medium 3, and I'm not going to go into detail because pretty much every model that we talk about always claim. To be honest, I've never understood that. Okay, how they all relate to each other, because every single model beat every other model. So those benchmarks have at some point have become a bit meaningless, I think. So I rather rely on, is it really good? If it is good, it generally goes viral. Like what happened to DeepSeek R1, or like the reasoning model O1, and things like that, right? Of course, and in the past GPT-4. That's what is now my more of a benchmark of knowing, rather than going to a lot of like these comparative numbers that are thrown at us. But Mistral Medium 3, right? So this is an addition to the current set of models which are available, like Mistral Small, Mistral Large, and Pixtral, and some others that they have. So Mistral Medium 3 actually kind of fit in that category, like somewhere in middle. Of course, they promise a lot of state of the art performance, but also 8 times lower cost. So it is very efficient model from Mistral, and Mistral has been doing some wonderful job, particularly in France and the European, and I would say like EMEA belt. They are pretty active. They have done actually, in fact, some very specific language models like Saba for Arabic and other languages, Asian languages. So they have created actually a lot of solutions for that purpose, and they're trying to do actually more on the enterprise. So you will see how they're actually making that move. But with this model, it's kind of a balanced model, right? Because the model performance is better than like 90% of Claude Sonnet 3.7 on the benchmarks, but the cost is significantly lower, for example. It also actually talks about the Mistral Medium 3 surpasses leading open models such as Llama 4 Mavericks, for example, which were basically just recently released, and enterprise models such as Cohere Command A. So they also talk about the model beat the cost leader like DeepSeek version 3, both in API and self-deployed system. They don't give the too much of a comparison with the GPT 4.1 and some of the models, but there are comparison available. I would say it definitely seems to, like, based on their own benchmark that they're published, it seems to beat Llama 4 Maverick. I would say pretty close to Sonnet and GPT 4.0, but seems like it's better than everything else, including sometimes on some of the benchmarks better than DeepSeek as well. So this is the new model that they've published now. Using this model, what they've also done is they actually made another announcement on enterprise, like Lay Chat Enterprise, and I want to really call it and say it in a more French way. Jamie, I just don't know, like Lay Chat, something like that. I just don't know how to say that. It just, whenever you hear something French, you want to like use your best of the accent, etc. But I just don't know how to do that. So let's chat enterprise. This is their way of moving into the enterprise, right? They are pretty active in the consumer space, but they want to actually move into the enterprise. There a lot of money is, and the scale is as well. So this new platform essentially, it has a lot of features like enterprise search, agent builders. It has custom data and tool connectors, document libraries, custom models, and some of the hybrid deployments essentially. And these features will be rolling out over the next 2 weeks. But like this essentially gives them an entry into the enterprise space where they want to actually go more deeper and compete with other offerings. So and that enterprise, Lichar Enterprise, is being powered by this Mistral 3 that we just talked about. So a lot of connection. You can use this platform to create those agents. You can use this platform to connect with the data sources, and that's what they're actually promising to do.
Yeah, and one of the important things, as you mentioned, it's the integration of data. So just coming out with a quote unquote a chat app for the enterprise is one thing, but it's about, number one, is it secured? And that's one of the things that they tout. But then it's also about integration of data. I know that they propose that this tool will be able to integrate with Gmail, Google Drive, SharePoint. And I'm sure that they'll have others coming out post that as well. But that's the important piece, because using a tool is no good unless you actually have data for it to go against. So that's certainly of importance with this announcement.
True.
So speaking of data, data is key. It's important. So OpenAI has come up with a connector for GitHub in their deep research. So this allows the ChatGPT tool, the application, to connect into your repositories, ask questions, analyze your actual code, and any other various engineering docs, and being able to return any information, whether it's reports, comprehensive analysis on that information that's in GitHub. So this is a direct connector inside of ChatGPT for the deep research agent. So, what's interesting here is it'll respect the various different organizational settings. So what that means is that only people who could see those GitHub repositories will be able to actually view those and explicitly share that content that comes out of it inside of the GPT analysis. So, I'm a GitHub user. I use it for some of the projects, and you have this notion of shared repositories or private. So it's these organizational settings, especially where you've got private repositories that might have your quote unquote company secret sauce on how you're developing or what applications are certainly proprietary to your org. This connector will allow for not only connecting but adhering to those quote unquote guidelines, especially around something like a private repository. This is not going to be released to everybody, however. So, this is something that's rolling out over time. It will first come to the GPT, Chat GPT Pro, Plus customers and team users over the next couple of days, with Chat GPT Enterprise coming soon. I'm assuming soon, since OpenAI, usually whenever they announce something, they do roll things out fairly quickly. So I would think that would be within the next month or so, if not sooner, to the ChatGPT Enterprise users. So outside of that, there's been some other news as well from Google. Google is launching what they call implicit caching. So, caching's been around for a while on a couple of different platforms. This is going to be something where they tout 75% savings based upon repetitive content passed into the models via the Gemini API. So what is different here, it's going to support two different models, at least for now, Gemini 2.5 Pro, as well as Gemini 2.5 Flash models. But there's also going to be a minimum limit. So if you're going to use this for this implicit caching, it's going to be basically about 1,000 tokens for 2.5 Flash, and about 2,000 tokens for 2.5 Pro, as far as that minimum prompt token count to be able to leverage this implicit caching. And it comes, kind of relate back to the story you just mentioned before, Shadab, in the sense that when Mistral, is launching their Mistral Medium 3, part of this was about driving cost optimacy, going into an 8x lower cost for that model. Well, you could drive costs down by not only having a lower cost model, but how efficiently you're using that model. And this is one of those examples, by using this implicit caching, that you could save a lot of quote unquote funds by, in this case, up to 75% on that repetitive content. And I think you're muted, Shadab. I know you're saying great stuff about the cost savings.
Oh yeah, that bug had to hit us as well, right? I mean, it's a common side every day. Like, okay, somebody's mute, and okay, we did achieve that as well. I was just saying that finally Google seems to have be getting like how to do that caching right, because they have been struggling actually about this little bit. It hasn't really helped them a lot, because the way they did it earlier, it wasn't really helping much, right? It was, by the way, also they call it explicit caching earlier, because you had to declare that, okay, I'm doing the caching and things like that. So it wasn't very popular. I hope that this really actually helped, because it works pretty well. I've seen that in my experience, that I think the prompt caching, as it is called for in the OpenAI and Anthropic models, it actually works pretty well, and it needs to be implicit. I mean, you don't want to say, right? Just do it, basically.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, again, OpenAI is back again in the news. Here we have another news from OpenAI. They are launching a new data residency program in Asia. And the data residency is where you basically promise that, okay, your data does not move out of a certain geographical or political zone. And not just data stores there, but even for the compute, it doesn't go out actually through other endpoints. Because typically what may happen is, let's say if you're using the global endpoints, your data may reside in a particular region, particular data center, but it may be sent out to actually any other region for the processing. But for the data residency requirement, for example, famous example is European Union, where your data must reside within. There are laws and regulations like GDPR and things like that. So in those scenarios, having a data zone actually helps, because you're promised that, okay, even though, like, for example, EU members, like it could be Switzerland or France, etc., it could be anywhere, but it would stay within the boundaries. So that's why the data zones are becoming popular. Microsoft provides two, US and European Union. So a lot of customers are actually opting for it, and sometimes the cost is also a bit cheaper on the data zone actually. So essentially, OpenAI, what they're trying to do is they're trying to actually launch the data residency program in Asia, which is actually tough things to do, because unlike European Union, Asia doesn't have like that kind of defined zones, right? They don't have a, I would say, a natural, I would say, like uh, long term established, like a consortium of countries who can be defined in a zone. So pretty much every country is its own zone, right? That's why it's difficult to do that in the Asia. Like even I would say GCC countries, right? The Gulf countries, even that I don't know if they will agree to actually come together. They seem to have a lot of differences themselves. So it's very hard to actually put a zone within Asia. But what they're trying to do is they're trying to do it for sovereign countries like Australia, for example. In this case, essentially, this basically will provide, like the residency for the countries, let's say Japan, India, Singapore, and South Korea. So it's going to be available. It's eligible for enterprise and educational customer, and it will actually work for the API as well as the new like enterprise ChatGPT enterprise product as well. So I would say that this is actually the way to go. A lot of countries are demanding that, starting to demand that, and it's becoming popular. We can see it. Moving from the data, they call it, I think, also data locality. Some of their data zones haven't gone functional yet, but I think OpenAI has had a bit of a challenge in the international markets. In the past, they've done actually really well getting the customers in the US zone, but in the international market, they haven't been able to actually expand a lot. They have to rely on Microsoft, which Microsoft has done a lot of expansion for them in those geography, but they're trying to actually do those things revenue directly as well. So that's where actually this is headed to.
Yeah, it's the I call it the ever evolving expansion. The way that OpenAI models are used around the world, and this is certainly one way of keep on expanding. Speaking on expanding, we've covered this a little bit in some past episodes around Google's agent to agent protocol, affectionately called A2A. There's certainly a lot of buzz around this protocol, which has not been around for that long. Maybe the last 6 weeks, give or so. But what's interesting is that more companies are jumping onto the A2A protocol, basically getting behind it. And when that happens, you get wider adoption, and then things become quote unquote standardized. So with that in mind, actually, Microsoft came out with a formal announcement just 2 days ago that they are going to be getting behind the agent to agent protocol. And what that means is that we're going to see support for this A2A protocol within the Azure AI Foundry. So basically, as you build, or as you may build agents within the Foundry platform, you can connect those agents to other agents that are not within the Microsoft Azure AI Foundry ecosystem. The other area that Microsoft is getting behind as it relates to A2A is within Copilot Studio. So being able to build your low code, no code agent through the Copilot Studio, again, being able to leverage A2A to connect a Copilot Studio built agent to any other agent, whether it's on Microsoft or not, to make those. So these are going to be coming soon to Azure AI Foundry and to Microsoft Copilot Studio. This is going to be, when you look at what they're delivering, it's going to be the tools that are needed within Foundry and Studio, but it's also going to be contribution to parts of the A2A ecosystem. So not only the things that they're building within Foundry and Studio, but ways that we're going to make the A2A protocol more widely adoptable, enterprise ready, so on and so forth. So part of that will be to contribute to the not only the accelerate and development and adoption of the A2A protocol across various different industries. So what I thought was interesting, and I started playing around with this, to be honest with you, there's some samples for leveraging the A2A protocol with semantic kernels. So this is available in Python, which is what I usually do things in. So it will demonstrate how to take two local agents, how they can collaborate using the A2A protocol. So in this example that is out there, two agents work together to plan a travel itinerary and handle currency conversions, showing the seamless interoperability between these two agents without needing for a custom orchestration code. So that sample's out there. Take a look at it. We'll post the show notes so you can get out to the article and the sample that's there. And it probably would be good maybe for one of our future episodes to actually go and show, maybe MCP working, the model context protocol, as well as A2A. So we could devote some time maybe just doing that alone.
I would love that. I think, Jamie, I think we should do that. MCP and A2A both are like pretty popular already, and then I think it would be good to actually showcase. I've seen a lot of videos. I would say that the several videos, either they become like too technical, they don't explain the fundamentals and things like that. I think there is a need for a very simplified version of these sessions as well.
It's basically A2A for dummies.
Yes, absolutely, that's what we need. One of the things that I really like, Jamie, about this news is, I may be biased, and everybody knows we both work for Microsoft, but I feel that Microsoft has been very open and adaptable, right? In these regard, they, joining a kind of a forum of all the, like this protocol that Google has started, and I think that's a great news, right? I mean, it's not easy, right? Not many companies are able to do that. In fact, Google famously has delayed their MCP adoption, right? And there was a famous tweet from Sundar Pichai asking for to MCP or not, right? That's a question. Let me know in comments. The thing is that, like, and Microsoft was very quick to adopt actually MCPs. They made that compatible in the Azure Agent Service. So I would say that, I like that approach, right? Like quickly adopting all these open standard. Microsoft has been opening up a lot of like Fabric as well. Fabric has become pretty open. It actually works very closely with a very close competition like Snowflake, right? Snowflake, and that competition has turned into actually more of a collaboration, honestly, right? And whether it's Oracle, there was a pioneering this Oracle at Azure that started, right? So I'm just putting a string of examples here to say that I think in the last 10 years there has been a fundamental shift in Microsoft. Microsoft at some point had become a very close company, but I think under Satya Nadella, things have changed. There's been a lot of collaboration, and even they have reached out to even Apple, right? I would say arch nemesis. Even that they have reached out and wanted to actually collaborate. So I think it's a really good news that the Microsoft is promising that they will bring a lot of the support. Google, on the other hand, is kind of like, I would say, delayed things. Surprisingly, they were earlier the pioneering of collaborating, but I think they have become a little bit more close. That's my experience, anecdotally. Like, and MCP is a good example, right? Even though Google is actually investor in Anthropic, right? Even OpenAI actually accepted the MCP as well. So I think it's a good news, because if it is not, it creates a scenario where like everybody has their own cable, right? It's like creating these open source frameworks and protocols. It's a good example of basically coming to the standard of USB-C, right? And basically it becomes just makes it easier for everybody to plug in. Anyway, just a quick example of how the companies are actually gaining the business, Jamie, that there is basically a news about ServiceNow. They have their own actually Gen AI product. They call it Now Assist, and it is expected to hit $1 billion in annual contract value by 2026, which is like a significant jump from currently what they do, which is $250 million. It's a good example of using AI, creating the new revenue upside, new revenue channels altogether. And I think this is a great example of the potential of AI. And these are the kind of like, and a company like ServiceNow, they sit on a lot of data, particularly the companies who sit on a lot of data and they also control the processes. Gen AI offers tremendous opportunity for them. ServiceNow or SAP and the Oracle and the ERPs and the business, or software, etc., things like that, they actually have a lot of potential using the Gen AI. Final example, and that's it about our episode today, Jamie.
Yeah, I know we covered a lot. It always amazes me that I look at some of our episodes and what's on the agenda. I'm like, oh, this should go quick. But another almost hour episode. So thanks again for everybody that's listening and made it to this point. It never ceases to amaze me that you think that a week is going to be somewhat slow in AI, and it never is. There's always something going on, and new announcements, new products, new companies, and just news around the world. So thanks again for everybody for listening.
I'm sensing the pattern here, Jamie, that somewhere news start dropping somewhere about Tuesday, but they continue all the way through Thursday as well. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday are the most, I would say, contributing days of the week when it comes to the AI news and the launches, essentially. And initially, sometime mid of the week, I'm thinking, okay, there's not much, and then suddenly barrage of things
Boom.
that happen actually. So, that's where we are. All right, everybody, have a great Mother's Day. Enjoy, celebrate, and talk to all of you next week. Bye,
Thanks,
Jimmy.
everybody. Bye bye.